You're listening to RTL SA.
Standing by all the way from Cape Town, looking extremely distinguished this morning with the glasses on your face. Mr. Romero, how are you today?
Good morning. Good morning, morning. How's it going?
Oh, if I was any better, I'd be worried.
Well, that is fantastic. So I'm just trying to put my phone properly centering. Yeah, it's all good. I'm inside because the wind's blowing like crazy outside and it's cold.
Uh,
So I decided there was no way I'm going to freeze my ass, and so it's from inside my office today.
no, I don't blame you. The wind is howling here as well. I actually decided to do laundry today for a change because, for some other reason, my washing line is in the shade. So, because it's winter, if I don't do washing when it's windy, it takes 2 days to dry.
Oh, okay. So well that's a good one. So you
Yeah.
do your own washing, eh? No?
Yeah, of course. What do you think?
Oh,
I'm
okay. Well,
some famous
well,
celebrity that gets my washing done for me.
I don't know. I'm just asking. I don't know.
No, listen. Applications are out for girlfriends at the moment, who will do my washing
Is
for
it?
me. But no
And
successful candidates
pray
yet.
tell pray tell what are the attributes that you're seeking?
They must be able to do my washing. I have some potential candidates though.
Okay.
No, we
Would be
we
interesting
just
to find out what the interviewing process might be.
no, exactly. We're discussing terms and conditions as we speak. Oh man. All jokes aside now, in all seriousness, incredible weekend this weekend. Couple of arrests, high profile arrests. And I tell you what, I have to give it to you because you predicted it. You said it was coming. Brian
Yeah,
Molefe
yeah,
arrested over the weekend.
yeah. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, no, and it's going to be even more. I think that remember I've been saying that there is a faction within the ANC that realize that if they don't clean up the act, they are going to lose 2024. And in the run up to the December elective conference of the ANC, you're going to see even more high profile arrests. And it just bodes well for confidence, I mean, in particular with these clowns that go out and Brian Molefe turned around, I think it was a few months ago, and said, "Bring me back into ESCOM, and I'll eliminate load shedding." I mean, what a joke! The audacity of this guy is incredible. I just cannot believe it.
What is the significance of this arrest? And now, obviously, it's going to be a long, drawn out case and whatever because they're only appearing in October again. But what is the significance behind this arrest of Brian Molefe and Anuj Singh and a couple of others?
Well, in Brian Molefe in particular, I don't know if you recall that he became briefly a member of parliament because they were grooming him to be the Minister of Finance. Um, so, what I would think with these kind of high level arrests or high level arrests, yeah, is that if you're in a similar position, um, I think you'll start thinking twice before you commit corruption. Okay, I think so. I think that it's getting to the stage where people are sorry because before corruption was so prevalent in particular during the Zuma years, that people were untouchable because the MPA, the Hawks, and all the SSA was completely captured. So corruption flourished with impunity. But now with these arrests, and remember that also the high level arrest of these police, or the forfeiture of the 74 million worth of assets from high level ex policemen also happened recently. So I think the effect is people will start thinking twice before committing corruption.
Well, let's hope so. What corruption are we speaking about here that they are specifically being accused of? It was a Transnet fiasco, wasn't it?
Yeah, the transit was a tender. I think it's awarding of the locomotive tender and various other tenders as well. Yeah, I think I'm not sure, but there's another ex-CEO from Transit that was also arrested.
Yeah, there were four of them in total.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but there's two ex-CEOs who were arrested. Brahmalev and Gama, I think it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, and, yeah, if I'm one would think that if I'm the CEO of Transit and I'm thinking of committing corruption, one would think you would think twice now. Not, I don't. I mean, I'm not delusional. It's not going to stop completely, but I think people are going to start thinking more about it as opposed to in the past. People just would just commit corruption with impunity. I think that is slowing down. I think so.
Do you think that it will ever be? Okay, I'm gonna ask you this question now. Now, let me ask you this one first. Okay, I know it's still early days in the case, but what do you think is going to happen over the next period during this trial and things like that
What with these lots?
with this lot? Yeah.
With this lot? No, this is going to take years. Man. It's going to take years. But so what's going to happen with this lot? Sure, that's a very difficult question, but I think that the MPA is pursuing these cases with vigor now. They want to put some convictions under the belt, um, um, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think there is a renewed confidence within the MPA. Remember that the MPA hasn't been cleaned out completely. By their own admission, they're still saying that there's some rogue investigators in the MPA. And I presume that it's going to take some time to clean up. Um, but look, the main thing now is that you know me, I'm an eternal optimist, yeah, I did call it that there will be arrests, but I think that it's going in the right direction. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going in the right direction. Um, yeah, so I think that again, I said there's a few times that Ramaphosa must win December. Don't want anyone else to come in. And then 2024, the ANC should lose the election, and we're going to have a government of national unity. Although now Malema is saying that he wants to cozy up with the ANC. I think that's tactical. I think, and then the DA, I really don't know how they operate, but basically, the leader of the DA this weekend put it on the line. Just say, trying to force Malema to choose. Can't do that with Malema.
No.
You can't do that with Malema.
Yeah,
You can't put him on the line. He'll tell you to fuck off so quickly. Sorry, Malema will just tell you to fuck off. I mean, really try to pull that move. I think the DA needs some new strategists because I don't know. I might sound maybe I'm arrogant in making that statement, but clearly you don't challenge Malema. I mean, you just don't do that.
As far as Malema's concerned, it'd be nice for the DA to have his numbers, but it'll also be nice for South Africa if he goes and disrupts the ANC government should they win the next election. So whichever side he chooses, it's probably not the worst thing for South Africa in general.
Yeah, I still maintain that after 2024, Malema is going to be our deputy president.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the deals he makes. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
What I wanted to
Either
ask
way,
you,
whether
Dave,
the DA or the ANC, he'll be deputy president.
what I wanted to ask you is, do you think, and I know that you are an eternal optimist, but do you think that with us moving in the right direction, that we'll ever successfully stamp out corruption in government?
Completely?
Yeah.
No, never.
There'll always be some form of it in another way, or
Some, yeah, but I mean, give me an example of a country that there is no corruption.
no, for sure,
Okay, name one. Maybe Japan. Maybe.
maybe not.
And China, and China. Well, China, if you found guilty, they execute you. So there's a strong deterrent in China. Um, but it still happens, right? I mean, look at this massive property collapse and bankers just. There's massive corruption in the Chinese banks at the moment, so it still happens there.
True story. Dave, I want to move on now. And today is National Grief Awareness Day. And I think this is a good way to lead into what we actually want to talk about now, about not being able to change the past, but being able to go forward. But National Grief Awareness Day, it got me thinking this morning. And very often I hear the story where people go through a process of grief and then they've got friends or family or whatever that say to them, just get over it. Get over it. Time to move on. How long is a piece of string? That's my question. And when dealing with grief, is there a certain time period that you need to adhere to before you can move on? Or is there a time period where it's just too long? What do you think?
No, well, I've been fortunate that I've had no close deaths in my life, so it's difficult for me to relate a time frame on moving on. But I think there is no formula. I think everybody's different, and everybody, and I think it's important that one has the time to grieve. Death is obviously the extreme, but it also comes through relationships and activities that one has been involved in. I'm in particular going through a period now since I moved to Museburg, which I've been 2 months. And being with nature is a natural therapeutic nuance, if I can say that. Okay, that makes you. It sort of makes you reflect. And I've forgiven myself for all things in the past, and I went through a period where I've said to myself, "Why on earth did I do that? And why did I all these years indulge in certain activity?" And what I've realized is that it actually serves no purpose. It actually serves no purpose in chastising yourself for what you've done in the past. You know, what's happened in the past, it's in the past, it's done, learn from it, and live forward in a manner that you are proud of yourself. But one has a tendency. I think it's a natural tendency to go back and think about why have you done that, and if you had done things differently, where would you be today? And I think that in itself, although for a small period of time, it's fine to do that, but then you need to reflect and move on. Sorry, I digressed completely from the question.
It's fine, but this is where we're going anyway.
Completely coming back, I don't know. I know, for instance, that my ex-wife boyfriend passed away 4 months ago, and she's still grieving. I hear of people that have loved ones that pass away and they grieve for years. And I hear people that have had life partners for 40 years, and after a year they move on. And one cannot judge and say, "Oh, how is it possible that a person can move on?" I think everybody is different, and everybody relates to grief differently. The main thing, obviously, for us, if we have people around us that are going through that experience, is for us to be there, not to judge, but just to be there, loving and supportive through the process.
Absolutely, and there's certain stages when dealing with grief, and 7 stages to be exact. And of course, as I'm opening the website, shock, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, hope, and then obviously processing the grief at the end of the day are all factors. But people often don't do it in any specific order. They tend to go to depression before denial, for example, and they sort of mix it up. Is there a right or wrong way to deal with grief?
No, again, I don't think there is a set process. I do feel, though, that when you're going through grief, that you should deal with it, though. You shouldn't ignore it and shut it out and just pretend it's not there, because it's bottled up inside you. And if it's bottled up inside you, it will come out and manifest in many ways. Um, so I think that it's important that one deals with it. How one deals with it, I think it's, again, subjective. It depends on the individual. And you can't be prescriptive. And the worst thing you possibly can do is that when somebody's going through grief, to prescribe to them what they should be doing to solve the situation. Again, what's important is just to be there and be supported through the process. But I don't think there's step one, do this, step two, do that. I don't think that that is a practical way of dealing with it. But what I would say, though, is that one would have to deal with it. That's important. You can't ignore it. You can't ignore the feelings that you're going through. You can't ignore the hurt and the pain that you're going through. You have to deal with it. You have to work through the pain and hurt, but not keep it bottled up inside.
Well, I think the ultimate goal of dealing with grief is to get to a point of acceptance, and that is where your benchmark is. It doesn't really matter how you get there, whether you are depressed first or whether you are bargaining or whatever. The end goal is acceptance.
Yeah, and I find, okay. So again, I haven't had a death in my family or someone very close to me. Okay, so except for my best friend's stepdad that lived with us, that I think that was the worst, and it took me quite a few months to get through it. Um, um, but closer than that, I haven't had that. But I find that for me, when I go one with nature, I find that to be quite therapeutic. I really find the worst thing you could do, obviously, when you're going through that, is go drinking. I mean, that is really the worst possible thing you could do. Sometimes you do feel like, and you feel like getting drunk to get over it, but when you get out of that state, the situation hasn't been dealt with. I find that walking through nature or being close to the sea and just sitting and reflecting and meditating and praying, and I think that works. And getting out, cry as much as you want, and it's fine. It's okay to get it out. Get it out. Get the anger, the pain. Get it out. Just get it out. Um, I do that, by the way. I do that.
I know you walk a
I have
You walk a
I
lot.
have situations when when I have a breakup in a relationship and I'm heartbroken. I have a good old cry, hey? And I'm not afraid to admit it. I mean, maybe it's not macho, but I don't really care. But it's therapeutic to get it out
It's
of your
a
system.
it's a stigma that it's not macho, and that's unfortunately a stigma that needs to change because men can cry as well. Why not?
Of course, of course. Why is it? Why is it that it's? Well, I think it's changing, though. But I would say 20 or 30 years ago, it was frowned upon for men to show affection,
Yeah.
or not affection, and to display how they feel openly. Um, I think that's changing. I really think that's changing, and I think that's a good change.
Dave, we can't change the past, but we can change what we do in the future, or we can change the future, so to say. I use inverted commas when I say we can change the future, but I actually mean it. You can change the future based on decisions that you make today.
Absolutely. So if going back to my example, that if you're not happy with the way you conducted yourself in the past, then naturally you don't continue with that. Stop doing that, right? So this is why journaling is so good, because you can always go and read. You can read why you were doing certain things, okay, and go back and reflect on it. And the way to improve yourself is just to not continue with that particular activity or practice that you're upset about. And so you can't change the past. You can't go back in time, okay, and go and change what you did. But you can change, or you have full control of how you conduct yourself moving forward. And if you're conscious of that, then you should lead a proper life.
Can I throw a spanner in the works? And I want to bring consequences into the conversation. Because, yes, you can't change the past, and you can change the way you conduct yourself going forward. But what happens if you're stuck in this moment where you are still dealing with the consequences of the past? And I'll use a silly example, like, say now you committed a crime and you are sitting in prison for an extended period of time or whatever. That surely makes it a little bit more difficult to change the future, because you're stuck dealing with the consequences of that situation at that specific moment in time. Sorry, I know. Curveball.
Yeah, no. Why am I not surprised? No, I think that in that instance, what's important is to take responsibility first. Okay. Don't play the victim, right? You take responsibility for your actions. You're in jail because you've done something wrong. Okay. It's not because of circumstances and etc. You did a wrong act. You let up in jail, and it's important to take responsibility and accept responsibility for your actions. You know, and admit, I did it, I was wrong, I'm paying the price. Okay? And then you move on, then you let go. Then for me, the next step is then forgiving myself. I forgive myself for doing that. And in prison, in prison, you might not be able to do that particular act that you're in prison for, but you can also conduct yourself in prison in a way that you've got a good track record and you get off early because of the way you're conducting yourself in prison. So I think it is relevant in that circumstances too.
How important, and you've said it a couple of times now, how important is forgiveness? How important is it for you to forgive yourself for your past?
If you don't do that, you can't move on. It's very simple. You have to let go. You have to let go of the past. You can't hold on to it. It's like a crutch, right? You have to let go. You have to let go. You have to take responsibility. Say, I did it. Not because of other people or because of circumstances. And sometimes it has a bearing, but ultimately you made the decision to do that act or go through that process. So you admit, I did it. Okay? Then you forgive yourself. You look in the mirror and say, you messed up. I forgive you. You look in the mirror. It's so empowering, and you start feeling the release. And then as you progress day on day, sometimes it comes back. You get tempted, and this is life, right?
I was just about to ask that question, and I love that you again. It seems like you and I are on the same wavelength, but yeah. So let's use someone who decides to give up drugs and whatever, and they forgive themselves for that, and then they relapse and they do it again a couple of years down the line. Do they fall back into the space they were before, or do they just continue moving on, forgive themselves again, and continue moving on?
I think that's very impractical to think that if you've done certain thing in the past or acted in a certain way and you take responsibility and you forgive yourself, that's not going to happen again. That's very naive to think that. It's just Or if you relapse, you just come back stronger, right? And hopefully that the time frame between the lapses increases over time. But it's very naive to think that that if you did something and you go through a process of cleansing, that it will never happen again. That's very naive. Just be aware that it can happen again.
And I think most important as well is to focus on that period between the two lapses, the success period, the period where you didn't relapse or anything like that.
That is why it's so important to journal, to write it down. You record how you acted to that, how you were, and if you were tempted, what did you do to stop the temptation? What process did you go? And then you record the next day. Okay, I was tempted again, and I did this. I went for a walk. I listened to music. I went to see the movie. And you record this process, and then when you're feeling vulnerable, we all do this. We go back and read and get inspired on how we got through it. And this is why I did a mentoring session on Sunday night to 53 kids, grade 12s, on good practices. And I implore on them to journal, to start learning to journal. And I'm glad to say that a lot of them actually have started doing that. And they've indicated how the impact already. And this is grade 12s. Okay. So well, you know me. I'm on your case about journaling, but it's so.
It's your story.
It really is. It's one of the tools to help you get through the process. It's one of the tools to not relapse into a bad practice.
Now, Dave, you can't change the past. The past is the past. And although you had a win last week, that does not mean that you're going to have a win today.
Well, I think the chances are pretty good. Unless you give me some meaning of, like the crater, the name of a crater on the moon or something odd.
No, we've had that question before. But the good news for you today, Dave, is that I got correct answers from Amanda, Lauren, and Cheryl and Bev as well. So it doesn't seem like it was a very difficult question today. But are you ready for it?
Yeah, no pressure. Hey? Yeah,
no pressure.
Let's go.
Time to test your knowledge with Power Play Trivia.
Your Power Play Trivia brought to you by Bev Miller. Dave, the question today is, the first vaccine was for which disease?
Smallpox.
Just like that. Just like that. You're on a streak. You're on a streak.
Smallpox.
Smallpox is correct.
Oh, yes!
And you didn't even hesitate. Wow. Good job, Dave.
Yeah. No, smallpox. No. But I mean, that's quite an easy one, I must say.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
Not too difficult.
Well, the challenge has been laid down then for next week.
Okay. Oh, no movie questions.
Next week's a movie question.
No, Dave, not a movie one.
Have an excellent week, and we will speak to you again next week, Tuesday.
You too, my buddy. Cheers, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
A few years later, a doctor named Edward Jenner built on Justy's discovery. He wanted to prove the theory that getting cowpox could protect a person from smallpox. So, he took a bit of pus from a cowpox blister on an infected milkmaid and put it into a cut in the arm of a young boy. When Jenner exposed the boy a few days later to the smallpox virus, he did not develop the disease. Just like Justy and the milkmaids, his body had learned how to fight the disease. We say he became immune to the disease. This was a crucial step in the development of vaccination. In fact, the word vaccination, thought up by Jenner, comes from the Latin word for cow, vacca. Following Jenner's experiment, smallpox vaccines began to be produced in large quantities. Millions of people got vaccinated in every corner of the world, until in 1980, the World Health Organization announced that smallpox had been eradicated. Today, we no longer need to use the smallpox vaccine as the virus is no longer circulating.
You're listening to RTL SA.